And here we go. Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well in the videoverse and on the cloud. We have a wonderful opportunity here at Anderson to speak with Sam Kunzman, who is a founder and creator of Edge Capital. Would you refer to yourself as a principal?
Yeah, one of two.
So one of two, and we have a wonderful internship opportunity to discuss today. I'm joined by my colleagues, Crystle Collier and Dr. Reilly White, and we're going to be asking Sam some questions about his work, the work he does, and the internship opportunity available to us. Sam, can you tell us a little bit about Edge Capital and the work you do, and then maybe talk a little bit about the internship opportunity available?
Sounds good. Well, thanks for having me, guys. Love to get to work with my alma mater, UNM. So happy about that. So here at Edge Capital, we're a small but fast-growing real estate private equity fund. So we've actually raised 4 rounds of external capital in the last, call it 3 years. Probably have raised in total over $2 million. We've grown the business from buying fourplexes in 5 years ago to, recently buying a 20-unit apartment complex down in Las Cruces, right next to New Mexico State. We have about $5 million of assets under management, and our model is kind of the traditional 2 and 20 private equity structure. And based on the amount of money we just raised, we raised over $1 million in July. We've already doubled in size this year to about 4 or 5 million in assets under management. But with the amount of capital we have remaining, we may double again. So I think we currently sit at about $5 million of assets under management, and we have about 90 units spread out between Albuquerque and Las Cruces. So with all that, we're growing very fast. Things are going well, but right now it's just me and my business partner, Corey Sutphin, who's also a UNM graduate, who are the founders and principals of the fund. So we're growing fast, but that means we need some help. So we were partnering with the Anderson School to try and find a couple interns, and we kind of view it as a dual track. We have kind of like a marketing project management side, which would be more on helping coming up with some investor materials, working with contractors, managing projects, tenant relations, things like that. Creating all different types of, and a big part of what we do is raise money. So we would need help with coming up with investor materials and a lot of really cool stuff. And then we have kind of a finance and accounting track, which would be more running P&Ls, more coming up with some back office functions around tax and accounting. But also, which would be really cool for any, finance guy or accounting guy, would be helping us source deals, learning how to model a deal, what's a good deal, what's a bad deal, how do we think about these things. So I think it's a really unique opportunity, especially considering there's not much private equity to begin with, other than some venture capital here in New Mexico. But of your 2 and 20 kind of real estate, there's really very little. So we think it's a very unique opportunity to get kind of in at the ground floor of a really fast growing company.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. So now that we have a few questions to ask you that might flesh this out a little bit further for the students. Crystle?
Sam, I appreciate that description of the position that you have. I do have a couple questions just because I know the students are going to ask them. Is there a particular type of student that you're looking for as far as undergrad or grad, international, domestic? And are you looking to pay for the internship, or is it going to be for credit?
Right. So I would say we would take so I think we'd look at either kind of juniors or seniors or graduate students, because we'd want them to have taken, at least on the finance accounting side, an accounting class, probably a corporate finance class or two, to kind of understand what we're doing. On the marketing side, kind of the same thing, or project management side, we want them at least to be schooled up in things like Excel and far enough along that we're not having to try and kind of teach them really, freshman and sophomore level kind of stuff. So I would say for the right candidate, we would look at juniors and seniors. graduate students as well. As far as pay, our intention is to pay the intern depending on, and kind of flexible depending on where they're at. So, undergraduates compared to graduates. I think we'd also like to work it out to where that student can get the most out of this so that they also could receive credit. So we've worked with Crystle on some background on this to try and, because I know that when I was an intern, various functions when I was at Anderson, it'd be really great to get paid, but it'd also really be great to get credit as well. I mean, kind of the double whammy. I think we're looking at and we kind of talked about this, Crystle, but I think we're looking at a time commitment between 10 and 15 hours a week. And a lot of it's going to be during working hours, so we'll have to be flexible around schedule. We can work with people, but it can't just be like a nights and weekends type of thing. I'm missing a question. What am I missing, Crystle? I haven't answered here.
Some of the issues that we have with internships is that they don't accept international students. And so that's the one thing that I wanted to make sure that international, because we have a bunch of international students at Anderson, just that this is an opportunity for them as well.
Yes, definitely. So I don't think we have any problem working with, domestic versus international students. We'll try and be flexible with our approach to whomever we end up trying to select. So, but yes, no problem with international students.
Thank you.
Hi, Professor White.
Thank you. And thank you, Sam, for your quick overview. It was incredibly helpful. And thank you again. The way you answered Crystle's question was fantastic. We appreciate flexibility. We appreciate your willingness to work with some of our outstanding students here at UNM Anderson. So although we don't offer any real estate specific classes here at UNM, which is one of the long-term things that we'd like to ultimately go forth and do, many students are extremely interested in building careers in real estate. We've seen huge institutional demand for real estate exposure in especially private equity sphere, in the private equity sphere during the last few years. And what skills do you think are going to be the most important that will help students be competitive at firms like yours and to help you with your business in the best possible ways? And is there anything specific you think that they should study or read up on before they get in that interview room with you?
Right. Well, first of all, we don't have to feel bad about not having any real estate specific classes. I did a master's in finance at INSEAD, Reilly, and they didn't have any real estate classes either.
Great.
So, it's kind of just, it's interesting. Real estate's actually, I kind of describe it to people as kind of baby finance, right? It's really a lot more simple than if you were trying to price an asset like, a company or whatever. It's usually a single entity. And it's kind of like pricing a bond, right? There's yields, stuff like that. But what I would say is, what I did is with anything, you need to learn the language of whatever you're doing, right? And so I think a really great book for anybody to check out would be Frank Gallinetti's book. It's called What Every Real Estate Investor Needs to Know About Cash Flow and 36 Other Key Financial Metrics. And what I did when I read that book, I read it when I was starting out about 5 or 6 years ago, and it kind of translates, traditional corporate finance metrics and puts them in terms of real estate. So it's what metrics do real estate investors care about? Things like cash on cash, cap rates, net operating income, things like that. IRR, obviously, but it, kind of takes your traditional corporate finance class and puts it in terms of real estate. I think the other thing that what we look for is, I think they need some hard skills, right? You need to know how to work Excel well. You need to know things about discounted cash flows, comparable comp models, stuff like, kind of your traditional corporate finance stuff. I think for us personally, soft skills that we like are, intellectual curiosity, people who want to learn about the world. I think the two biggest things that I've seen that success versus failure in people is drive. Like, do you have a motor? What's motivating you? And I think for us, you'd have to be a pretty motivated person to want to come work with us, because we're, it's in the early stages. So it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of, kind of craziness going on. But I think the other biggest thing is you got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. Because when we started, there wasn't anybody for us to really lean on. And we started with fourplexes, right? And what I would tell anybody, the other biggest thing is, you learn by doing, right? And I tell any young people out there, the very best way to build a net worth early on, not the stock market, is you need to go out, take one of these owner occupied loans that you can get through the FHA for almost no money down and buy a fourplex. And you can really learn the business of commercial real estate from the ground up, almost for, very little money down. And it's like a perfect way to go learn. And I would say the last thing that I would tell anybody who wants to learn about real estate, you need to read Sam Zell's book, Am I Being Too Subtle? Because, basically what we're doing is taking Sam Zell's playbook from 50 years ago and trying to do it into today's world. And instead of focusing on cities like Denver and Dallas, we're focusing on cities like Albuquerque and Las Cruces.
That was a wonderful answer. Yeah.
Fantastic, Sam. Thank you so much. That's great.
Thank you, Sam. That's wonderful advice. And one of the reasons that I think these videos are going to be extremely valuable to students moving forward. We really appreciate the depth of advice that you're giving. I'm putting the names of the books on the chat bar that will be visible in the recording in case anybody's interested in following up on that. I do have one question about the world that you live in, the business world that you live in, and that is related to the California wildfires, COVID-19. There's all sorts of things that are going on that are causing people to move from places that they once lived. And, we're anticipating that there's going to be a mass movement of people from places like California to other places in the United States. New Mexico may be one of those locations. How does that affect or impact the work that you're doing? And what would you say about that so that students could think about the importance of this as a growth sector?
So I would say, I think the biggest thing I hear is a lot of the people I went to high school with or college left, right? They moved to places like California or Denver or Texas. And what I'm always told is, I love New Mexico. It's great. I wish I could be here, but there's not as many job opportunities or whatever. So I had to leave to go where the money was, right? And I think what we've seen in the last 6 months since the outbreak of COVID is, the world's actually a lot smaller of a place than it used to be, especially with some of the digital technologies we have. And what I think you'll see is, and I've already seen it with, people who quarantined here who live in other states, because if you can work remotely, you're going to see people leave places like California and New York where costs of living have gone, through the roof, and they can still have their high paying job, right? They can still go be, a tech entrepreneur or whatever, and still work in Silicon Valley, but they could live here at least for part of the time or all of the time. And I think the economic implications of that in our economy it should be pretty obvious, right? They'll spend a lot of money here, they'll buy houses here, things like that. And I think for our business, what will be good is you'll see a demand for housing, right? Throughout all phases of the market. You'll need tenants, you'll need new homeowners. And I think you're already seeing it. We've already seen in our business a massive amount of capital coming from California to buy apartment buildings here in Albuquerque. So we've actually sold buildings to Silicon Valley investors who are looking for, cheaper assets, higher returns than they could get in California, because New Mexico, in almost every other way, really, as far as like your traditional metrics of real estate, is far better than California. Than, as far as what's a cap rate, what internal rate of return could you get, what's your cash on cash, all these different things. So I think you're dead on that you're going to start seeing a lot of the migration from the coasts of this country into places like New Mexico. You're already seeing it in places like Texas, right? And we've already seen capital move from California. That's kind of part of our business model, is finding out-of-state investors to buy a lot of our buildings. So I think it could be really, really exciting here in the next, call it 6 months to 3 years, as you start to see people move from these places to New Mexico.
Thank you so much. And that's all the questions we had. I think that gives the students a lot of context to understand the opportunity available, and we're going to make sure that this is available to them as soon as possible on all of our channels and outlets. So thank you, Sam, for your time this morning.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Professor White. Thank you, Ms. Collier, I hope everybody is doing well. On behalf of Anderson, my name is Manuel Montoya. My pronouns are he, him, his, and we are signing out.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.